All right, so we are live. Let's get into it. We're talking about emotional regulation, right, Coach Sis?
Yes.
How to regulate those emotions. All right, so yeah, let's get with it. Let's get with it. I'm
All
excited.
right.
I'm excited. Need to learn how to regulate these emotions. Come on now.
Yes. So it's Wellness Wednesday and it's also International Women's Day today.
Yes, it
So
is.
I definitely wanted to talk about this because women, we always get, stereotyped as having all these crazy emotions.
Yes, we
you
do.
know,
We do get demonized in that way, don't we?
Exactly. We do. But I feel like we carry these strong emotions. We carry a lot of we also carry a lot of weight, but our bodies go through so many different changes, right?
Mhm.
And
Let's not talk about being Black women.
okay, so that's
Okay.
even we and that listen, that's a whole nother topic.
Right, right, right.
So, but when I was thinking about this, I was actually, having this conversation with one of my sisters, about, just our bodies and how it's crazy because she was saying it and she was just saying, like, my body, she was saying, like, how I know how my body just, connects with my mind and my just with everything, and it's true. Like if your body is off, like your emotions is off, your
Yes.
thoughts is off, like everything is connected. So and I was explaining to her, like, you're right, so it's like something has to be in, something has to be working at the right time so that your thoughts and your emotions can be working together too.
Yep.
So we was talking about like the whole emotional regulation and how, she's like, well, what do I need to do to make sure I'm okay? If I feel like my body is off. And I'm like, you need to learn how to regulate those emotions regardless.
Mhm.
So that's why I wanted to get into this and talk about it. And not only that, like when in therapy, we have so many different approaches of, that when we're working with clients, but emotional regulation is actually one of the approaches that we use for DBT, which is dialectical behavioral therapy.
Mhm.
And so DBT is actually used to help you identify just like negative thinking patterns, anyways. So it helps you to, replace those negative thinking patterns with some positive behavioral changes. But again, you can't do that if your thoughts ain't right, your emotions ain't right,
Right,
and things
right.
like that. So you have to learn how to regulate your emotions, regulate your thoughts, change your whole body, behavioral changes, and things like that. So I really wanted to talk about, emotional regulation and also some skills that we can use just on a daily basis of how to
Yes.
just learn how to calm ourselves down in stressful situations. Because when we are dysregulated, right? Some
Mhm.
people do things like to the extreme of like hurting themselves. Like some people self harm. Like,
Yeah.
some people use substance abuse. Some people drain it out with alcohol abuse. Some people just,
Yeah,
they
something to
just
numb the pain or
to
to numb
numb that
the,
pain,
that pain. Mhm.
Exactly. And it's not just women. I know I said, women, we have those strong emotions, but there's men that do the same thing,
No, men and men be having like all of the emotions, that's
Yeah.
for
Oh,
sure.
yes.
They have,
Right.
I mean, it's a human, it's a human situation, right?
Right.
But I think because today is, International Women's Day,
Right.
we can talk about a little bit more, just
Right.
knowing how we have been stigmatized, like you were saying,
Right.
but also
Exactly.
knowing that this is everybody goes through it. Because I've seen a lot of men that can't hold it together. And actually, I feel like I read an article about how women are a little bit more like, I don't know if it's because of practice, but like
Mm.
we just hold it together. And
Oh,
even
yeah.
and I was watching this show. This is a little detour, but it's related, I promise.
No, yes, of course.
So I've been watching this show. I just finished it. It's called Special Forces. So
Okay.
a little shout out to that. But this show is crazy. Like this is really crazy. You have military special ops, you know, that are bringing a group of celebrities through all of these like unthinkable situations, but they're real life situations that these the special forces folks like actually go through, right? So they're based off of real life things. But for the everyday person and for, you know, this celebrity person, it's like, it's not going to work. And so I say that to say that of all the people who came, and it was, you know, folks of all genders,
right?
Two that stayed till the very end were both women.
Of course. Why wouldn't it be?
They were both underestimated. Both of them were underestimated. One of them was a star athlete, soccer player, you know, on I think playing for the US team. And, you know, and this person was failing a lot of the tests, but was still persevering, right? Was still like moving forward. So they were able to tap into some of those things. And then the other person who was there used to be a bachelorette. And so, you know, on that show, right, The Bachelorette. So she was one of the bachelorettes. And she was discounted as being weak, but she turned out to just be so strong mentally. And I think that mental toughness came out. And, you know, and that's what persevered. And you should see it. So anybody who's watching this, y'all, if y'all haven't seen it, I'm going to say, look at it just as a case study, because I was looking at it in that way. Like, wow, everybody thought these big, strong macho men, you had Olympians, you know, and you had professional basketball players, and you had former NFL and NBL, you know, Hall of Famers who are in there, and like none of them stayed, but these two women were able to stick it out to the end. And I think it had a lot to do with their mental toughness, because that last test was a mental test that they had to go through. And
exactly. And you said some key words in there. You said like the perseverance, and you said another word in there. But the thing about it too that I admire about women, and like when we are under a lot of pressure, is like we really like holding it all together. That's what you said. Like we know how to hold it all together, but there are those times too that where we do crack. Sometimes we do crack under pressure. A lot of times, you know.
Every week I crack.
Oh yeah, you know, like
every week I have a day where I'm like, this is my day. Let it all hang out emotionally.
Oh yeah, and honestly, those are the days. That's where I take those self-care days, because I'm just like, you know what, this is the day I need to just not talk to nobody. I ain't answering the phone. My phone's on do not disturb. I don't want to talk to nobody today.
Yeah, give me the bubble bath and the Epsom salts, and give me a nice little rub down on the feet, and
You know, and so the thing about it is like when we do feel like, you know, dysregulated, I'm telling you, when we're dysregulated, everything, your body doesn't even feel right, because you can't even maintain, you know, meaningful relationships. Communication is off, you know, you on edge. You're yelling at everybody, you know, like, you're just,
nobody want to be around all of that, you know.
Nobody want to be around that, you know. And so and sometimes it does get to those like those self-destructive behaviors, you know what I mean? You're having those meltdowns, you're having those temper tantrums, you're having those outbursts, you know. You're having all of those things. So, you know, it's important that we recognize it, right? That's the important task.
So you can check yourself, right? When you're going down it, you're like, wait, nope, not fair to anybody else around me, and also not fair to me.
Exactly. You know, so it's everybody always can say like, well, I'm having a bad day. Great. You're allowed to have bad days. You really are. We are literally allowed to have a bad day. There's no, I don't know anybody that has a good day every day. And if they do have a good day every day, great. Because I'm not saying you have to have the worst day. I'm not saying like, oh, things have to come up drastically and dramatically to the point where you're just like so dysregulated where you can't function, because there are people that do struggle with that. But I'm saying like we're bad days where like maybe I don't want to even say they have to be bad days. It's just, you know, some things just don't go as planned.
Yeah, you got one of those, what's it called? Murphy's Laws days, where like everything that can go wrong is going wrong.
Exactly.
You know? But where
Exactly.
your headspace is can really impact how you feel, that the
Exactly.
result of that.
Exactly. So some of the things that you want to do when you are feeling like dysregulated so that you can help, with these, so you can start regulating your emotions.
Yeah, get your
We
pen and
talked
paper
about
or your
it.
pad out.
Right. Exactly. Because
Get
we
it
talked
out.
about
If you
it.
don't have it, get your pen
Get
and
the
your
pen and
paper
paper out.
out.
Because we talked about like some of this stuff too, like last month. Is like, that's why I was saying, like, pack light, know what your triggers are and things like that, because these are the things that you have to do. So therefore, when you're being tested, because that's what it is, it's a test, when you're hit with, when you get to work and the boss is doing something to make you mad. Listen, I had a situation recently where I looked at my check and my check was a little low. I didn't even get mad. I did not even get mad. I didn't even say anything because I also know that it may end up on the next check. This happened to me before. I didn't have to say anything, and the next thing it ended up on the next check. So sometimes it's how we handle our emotions. There was no need for me to even get mad because I also looked at it like, well, okay, well, let me just manage my money a little differently on this paycheck, so therefore I can make sure that on the next check when I get my money back, because that's how I'm looking
I
at it.
got
It's like,
somebody right now that owes me like $7,000, and I was like,
okay,
okay,
right, like, so that's what I'm saying. It's like I flip out. I'm not going to flip out now. I'm going to wait and see what
no.
happens in the next couple of weeks, and if I don't get, then I'll say something. I may mention it. Then it's not a lot. It wasn't
But
that
even
much.
then, you don't have to mention it in a way that
It's
that brings anger about within inside of
exactly,
you, because that's what the thing that
exactly
I realize is that it is
right.
doing me more harm to stress out about this.
To
I'm gonna
stress
get my
out about
money.
it.
I'm gonna
Right.
get my money. You gonna
That's why
get
I'm
your
gonna get my
money.
money regardless.
But right,
But,
right. But stressing about it, and I remember how something like that would have really stressed me, because there was a moment in time
exactly.
when I didn't have any money, where I would be
Exactly.
literally
Yep.
paycheck to paycheck. And there are other
Right.
people out here who can relate to that, where
Yep.
it's like, no, I have to stress about this. And I found myself getting addicted to this feeling of
Right.
being anxious and being stressed out about these
Yes.
little things, where
About little
if I
things.
wasn't dysregulated, I felt off. You see what I'm
Right.
saying? So
Exactly.
sometimes people get into that as well.
Yes. Exactly. So you want to make sure that you actually know what your triggers are, identify them so you can actually reduce those triggers. So you're not feeling like, oh my God, like this is a trigger for me. Like if it is, just say that, like, oh my, okay, this is a trigger. Like you said, that before this would have caused you some stress, some anxiety. You would have probably called, like, excuse me, I sent that email.
Oh,
Like, you
yep,
know what I mean?
yep. I would have been knocking on the door. Like,
Exactly.
I'm gonna look you in your eye when I'm talking about my
Exactly.
money. But
Right. And I was just having a conversation with another one of my clients. It's important to look for patterns, right? We have to start looking at patterns, habits, those unpleasant emotions, so that we know, like, okay, like, you have to start recognizing your feelings. I tell my clients all the time, before I address any situation with anybody, I don't care who you are, I sit with myself first. Okay. I sit with and when I sit with myself, it could take a day, it could take hours, it could take a week. I don't care how long it takes, because before I address the situation, I want to make sure that I'm addressing the situation not in anger mode, sarcastic mode. I don't want to come off, aggressive. I want to make sure
right.
that I process every single emotion, and our emotions change. Women, we
How
go,
authentic
listen.
to how you feel, but
Exactly.
once you've been able to calm yourself down.
Exactly.
So what are the tools for emotional regulation that we could start using today?
Right. So you want to definitely identify the triggers, right? And then again, you want to make sure that you're recognizing those physical symptoms. Remember, I was saying, like, when I was talking to my sister, like, she's like, wait a minute, my body, I'm starting to shake. I'm starting to, like, my body is heating up, like,
Temperature's
because
rising. Yeah.
yes,
And not in
that
a good
temperature
way
is
either. Not in the good way.
your voice starts shaking,
You start
like,
crying a little
recognize
bit. You
those.
ever got that?
Yes.
Where you were so mad, you just like you
Listen.
like, I'm so mad, and you just little
Right.
tears coming in. You're like, I'm not sad, I'm just that
Right.
angry.
Exactly. So you
Oh
want to recognize that. You even want to start to realize, like, maybe you need to go talk to somebody. Sometimes it's best that when you start to feel like this, like, the first thing you some people, in other situations, I would say don't call nobody, don't, because you might start a situation where you say the wrong thing and then it gets, like telephone. But
okay,
in this situation, you want to make sure you might need to call somebody, because that person, you want to call a trusted person, somebody that you can actually be almost like vulnerable with, where they will provide you with positive feedback to help you to calm down, to help you realize like what is it that you are saying, and your emotion, what are your emotions are. Because again, a lot of times people get to those extremes where they want to hurt themselves and they want to drink and they want to smoke and they want to just do the most, and it's not healthy for them.
So before we get to that place, we're gonna call somebody that
you're gonna call somebody. You want to talk to them. You want to, you want to make sure that you can actually vent. You want to be able to let it out. If sitting with yourself is not something that works for you yet, because honestly, it took a while for me to get there too. So if sitting with yourself is not something that you can do just yet, and you need to actually talk to somebody about it first, do that.
And I like to, if I'm not talking to a mental health professional, right? If it's like a friend or a family member or something like that, I normally am sending them a text like, listen, girl, I'm going through some things. Can I call you? Because I like to get permission. I don't like to just lay it on to people. And I feel like you and I have had these conversations too, where I'm like, hey, sis, I'm going through something. Because I want you to prepare yourself. Like, nah, girl, I'm about to tell you some stuff and I'm about to vent, like bear with me, and that I find is a way to have a respectable conversation with somebody where you can really feel safe, where that person don't leave annoyed or leave, or that person doesn't leave with your emotions because they want to guard themselves, ahead of time.
Exactly. So yeah, I think that it's important to do that, like that's why I say you want to make sure you're talking to people that you can actually feel comfortable, laying this information. Another thing you want to make sure you're doing is asking people, is it okay for you to even have this conversation with them? Because everybody can't handle these things, so it's important, like asking like, hey, is it okay if I, talk to you about this? Like, is it okay? And then also like what I've been, I think I've mentioned it before, like I've been teaching my clients to do is do a brain dump. Like it's basically journaling, but like I feel like with brain dumps, it's just dumping it all out. It don't have to be in no specific order. And then you just write.
We talked about that, right? A couple weeks ago.
Just brain dump it, just dump it all out on paper. And, a lot of times other things come out of that. It doesn't actually be the situation that you're experiencing that made you mad that specific day or at that specific time. It could be other things that come up too, because a lot of times we hold on to stuff, so it just be a pile up. It be in those small things. Like it could be something that happened on Monday and then something happened on Wednesday and then something happened on Friday. Now you're ready to blow up. So it'd be all
that happened years ago,
right? And it's something that
happened years ago, and you like, wait, hold up! All of a sudden, I'm back,
and now it's a trigger for you. And now you're like, okay, here we go, and now I'm ready to fight everybody. And
he's like, and all they said was good morning.
Right? Exactly. So you want to make sure you're doing those things. And the last thing I want to say is about that is, I was saying, like I sit with myself with those uncomfortable emotions and things like that. And something that you also said when you were talking about the show is, it made me think about it, the distress tolerance. Like they had that, they were able to, one thing I can say about us women is we can tolerate. We can tolerate so much.
You didn't see that show, did you? You didn't see it?
I didn't.
You have to see it. I was up there looking like, how are they doing this? Like, and to think, right? And this is like, shout out to all the veterans and everybody who's currently in the military, because I was looking just like, wow, that is insane. And I couldn't imagine, going through that, and here these civilians were, and on top of it, celebrities, they don't live there like, and I mean, dropping like flies,
exactly,
had that resiliency. Like when I watched it, I say, good God, I'm nervous for you, I said, I am scared for you. I'm looking like, are they gonna die? Like, what's happening? And them two women pushed through. Oh my God.
Right. And
Mhm.
so, like, and that's the thing, like, what happened is they probably were able to build up that distress tolerance, like, over time,
It was
we don't
only a
even,
couple days too. They
and
they was only there
they
for
were able
like
to stick
10
it out.
days or something like that. It was,
They were
oh
able to stick
God.
it out. And this is what I'm saying, like, about, I feel like with us women, we really have like these, we got superpowers. Like, I'm
Shout out
telling
to
you,
us. Shout
we got some
out to the
superpowers. I'm
women.
telling you, like, we really hold the key to the gate. And so but we won't, the thing about it is we can't have access to those things if we don't know how to manage our emotions. When we all over the place and we dysregulate it, we cannot tap into that. So we have to make sure that in order to hold down the fort, we gotta, make sure that we're using these tools and, identify what is it that, like, really ticks you off, like, what really brings you to the edge, to the point where you feel like, okay, I can't even hold it together right now, like, I can't manage my emotions. And then once you're able to actually recognize that, because that's what it's about, it's all about self-awareness. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, once I notice that, what are some changes that I really need to make within myself, so I don't allow myself to just make myself mad. My sister told me the other day, she's like, when you call me about the family, I don't want to hear it no more because it makes me mad. So I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, so then I stopped calling her, telling her stuff, because
Yeah.
it was really making her upset.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now she's like, well, why you don't tell me stuff anymore? And I'm like, because you told me that was a trigger for
Yeah. I
you.
was respecting what you
I was
said.
respecting what you were saying, and she's like, well, I'm glad you don't do it no more. Because she was like, I don't think I'm still not ready to hear,
But
to
she's
hear.
still kind of curious though, right?
But she's
Like,
still
what's
curious. But
happening a little
I'm
bit.
still not gonna do it because I don't want to bring to that point where she's uncomfortable again, and
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like, I want to be able to respect those boundaries for you. So that's what it's about. I really want us to be able to, like I said, tap into those superpowers. But we
Mhm.
can't do that if we can't manage our emotions.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right. Well, I have one question. That I don't know if anybody else has this question, but I think I've been pretty honest with you and with our community about, some of my own things. And one of the things is that I think as a byproduct of all of the trauma that I've experienced, I don't always know what I'm feeling when I'm feeling it, right? I've told you this before.
Right. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So it's like, what are you feeling when you feel it? So if you don't, and I've done, of course, years of work so that I'm, a fully functioning human being now, but but for folks who, still need to really do the work, how do you regulate your emotions when you don't know what your emotions are?
And I know that, like, and that's an interesting question, because I know that they have all the tools out there. They got the emotions wheel, and you can
Well,
actually,
I use
you
it.
know,
I'd be like, which one
right,
am I feeling?
exactly,
This one.
right, exactly. And sometimes even when you do identify like what those feelings are, it still doesn't seem like that's the pinpoint of what it is that you're feeling, right?
Mhm.
So sometimes I think, like, that's why I like doing the brain dump, because sometimes there's no name to it, like, there's just really no name to. I honestly could tell you, I was just telling my boyfriend, like, there's days I don't know what it is that I feel, but something just doesn't feel right some days.
Mhm.
I don't feel depressed, I'm not sad, I'm not anxious, but something ain't really all the way
Something's
there.
off, right?
Something is off. And so that's why I'm like, okay, maybe I have to do a little bit more mental work. So that's why I take those self-care days. And
Yeah.
that's why I'm like, okay, maybe you're right. My energy is not connecting correctly with the right people. I need to align myself with the right people, because I'm like, okay, my energy is not right. I got to stop talking to some family members, got to stop talking to some friends. It is what it is. So,
Mhm.
and I feel like that's what it be for me. Everybody is different. So when you don't really know what the feeling is, you almost have to do like an inventory of your life and be like, okay, what is it that what I did this day and that day? Who did I talk to? I think it's about energy. That's what I think. I really do.
Yeah.
Because it's not always like an actual emotion. I just think it's maybe the energy is not right.
Okay.
So I think, and that's all I think I've been noticing lately is, like,
So
if I look on the emotion
put your
wheel,
stage together.
yeah, the emotion wheel don't got my emotion on there. It doesn't. It just really doesn't.
Mhm.
So I'm like, well, I think it's just really energy. I think it's
What are
just really,
emotion? The emotion wheel, and we can wrap up here, but the emotion wheel that I put into our community is like the most thorough one that
Yes,
it's pretty
I
thorough,
see
right?
it. I know.
And I'd be
I've been
like,
using
okay,
that.
right. You like, okay, I'm looking like this smiley face or that, whatever,
Right.
I'm looking like this
Right.
emoji face. And then out of this, beautiful flower of, of a
Right.
wheel extension, I'm like, I think I'm more here. This color's
Right.
all nicely color coded and everything. So you know what, for those of you watching, if you ever have those issues, revisit the emotion wheel, but practice the brain dump. And if you didn't see our brain
Yes.
dump video, go and look at the brain dump video,
Yes.
right? That
Yes.
when we talked about that a couple weeks ago, find it and practice that, because emotional regulation, I mean, this was such an important topic, sis,
Yes.
to go through. And I learned so much, right, from our conversations.
Yes.
And so I know that our community is benefiting from this as well. And
Of
we
course.
practice these things, right? And even
Right.
you as a therapist, like you
Yes,
are
I have to. I'm human
right.
just like y'all. I go through stuff just like y'all. Trust me, I am not perfect.
Exactly. So, from the source, y'all, directly from the source.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Coach Cicely. Thank
Yes.
you.
Yes.
Thank
Well,
you.
I hope everyone has
Happy
a
International
wonderful,
Women's Day.
yes, wonderful Wellness Wednesday, wonderful International Women's Day. I hope everyone enjoy it. Do something for yourself.
Amen. Amen.
Right.
Okay, then. All right. Well, see you next time.